The road was empty that night. Only the sound of rain hitting the windshield and the steady hum of the old truck filled the silence. Ethan Cole drove slowly through the dark forest road, his tired eyes fixed on the headlights ahead. He had just come from the small-town cemetery, where he left fresh white flowers on his daughter's grave. It had been 5 years since the accident, but the pain never faded. Every drive home from there felt longer than the last. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a low rumble. Ethan sighed and turned up the radio, but it only gave static. Then, out of nowhere, the entire forest lit up with a blinding blue light. The ground shook so hard his truck swerved off the road. "Whoa!" he shouted, gripping the steering wheel. The light grew brighter, brighter than any lightning he had ever seen. Then it vanished. Silence returned, thick and heavy. Smoke rose from behind the trees ahead. Ethan's heart pounded. He stopped the truck and stepped out into the rain. The air smelled of metal and burnt earth. A strange blue glow flickered between the trees. Curiosity and fear fought inside him, but something stronger, a strange pull, made him walk forward. Branches cracked under his boots. The glow became brighter. Then he saw it. A huge shining object had crashed into the ground, carving a deep crater in the forest floor. It wasn't a plane. It wasn't a meteor. It was something else. The object was smooth and silver, shaped like a teardrop, half buried in the dirt. Sparks hissed around it. Steam rose from cracks along its sides. Ethan's breath caught when he heard a faint sound from inside. A voice, "Please." He froze. "Please, have mercy." It was a woman's voice, weak, trembling. Ethan took a cautious step closer. The side of the pod opened with a hiss, releasing a rush of cold air. Inside, he saw her, a woman but not human. Her skin was pale silver with faint glowing lines running across it like veins of light. Her hair floated around her like strands of white fire. Her eyes, glowing blue, met his for only a moment before she collapsed, whispering, "I can't walk." Ethan's chest tightened. She looked hurt, badly hurt. Strange blue liquid, her blood maybe, stained her arm and the ground beneath her. He stepped back. "What the hell are you?" Her lips moved weakly. "Help me, they'll come." "Please." Before Ethan could reply, he heard something else. A low, deep hum in the distance. It wasn't thunder. It was mechanical. Like engines. Like something searching. He looked at the sky. Through the clouds, he saw small red lights moving in a pattern, drones or ships. Ethan looked back at the woman. She was trembling, her glowing eyes full of pain and fear. "They'll find me," she whispered. "They'll kill me. And you." Ethan didn't understand any of it, but he knew one thing. If he left her there, she would die. And whatever those red lights were, they would soon find her. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. She flinched but didn't resist. When he tried to lift her, she was lighter than she looked, almost weightless but cold as ice. "Hang on," he said. "We're getting out of here." He carried her through the rain back toward his truck. The hum in the distance grew louder. Through the trees, he could see shapes, black, metallic, and moving fast. His heart raced. He reached the truck, opened the back door, and laid her down carefully. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Her glowing hand caught his wrist. "They're here." A bright red beam of light swept across the forest, landing just a few feet from them. Ethan ducked and started the engine. The old truck roared to life, and he hit the gas. The tires spun on the wet ground before catching grip. Behind them, the beam followed. The red lights grew closer. A metallic roar echoed through the forest. Something was chasing them, something that didn't sound human. Branches smashed against the windshield as he drove faster. The alien woman groaned in pain, gripping the seat. Ethan glanced at her. Her light flickered weakly. "Hold on," he shouted. The truck bounced over roots and mud, the headlights flashing through the darkness. The hum behind them turned into a high-pitched scream, a machine closing in. Then suddenly, everything went silent. No sound, no hum. Just the rain again. Ethan slowed down, breathing hard. He looked around, nothing, only darkness. He turned to the woman. Her eyes were half open, glowing faintly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't stop." "Please," Ethan nodded. "You're safe now." But deep inside, he knew that wasn't true. Whatever had crashed with her, whatever was hunting her, wonder was still out there. As he drove deeper into the forest, a faint growl echoed from the trees behind them. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was something else and something coming, and Ethan knew from that moment his life would never be the same again. Rain poured over the forest like a never-ending curtain as Ethan's old truck bounced along the muddy path. The tires splashed through deep puddles, throwing up mud on both sides. The alien woman, still wrapped in his jacket, lay on the back seat with her eyes half open, breathing softly. The strange blue light from her skin had dimmed but still glowed faintly in the darkness. Ethan's heart pounded as he glanced at the rearview mirror. No red lights, no machines, only the forest and rain. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He gripped the wheel tighter and whispered, "Just hold on a little longer." Almost there. After what felt like hours, he turned onto a hidden dirt road, one that no one else knew about. It led to his old family cabin deep in the woods. The place hadn't been used in years, not since his wife and daughter died. But tonight it was the only place he could go. When he reached the cabin, he parked behind thick trees so the truck couldn't be seen from the sky. The rain had slowed to a mist. He lifted the alien woman in his arms again. She was light, almost too light, and her cold skin made him shiver. He pushed the creaky door open and stepped inside. The cabin smelled of dust, wood, and old memories. He laid her gently on the couch near the fireplace. She groaned softly, her glowing veins flickering like a dying candle. "Don't move," Ethan said quietly. "You need to rest." He hurried to the kitchen corner and grabbed an old first aid box. There wasn't much, some bandages, alcohol, and gauze. He soaked a cloth in warm water from the kettle and began wiping the strange blue liquid off her wounds. It shimmered faintly like light trapped in water. When the cloth touched her skin, she gasped. Her hand shot up, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes snapped open, glowing brighter. "It's okay," Ethan said quickly. "I'm helping you, see?" She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly let go. "You help me?" she asked, her voice weak and strange, like someone trying to copy human words. "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "You were hurt. I couldn't leave you there." She looked around the small cabin, the wooden walls, the old fireplace, the flickering lantern light, and frowned. "This place? It's safe," Ethan said. "No one will find you here." Her glowing eyes studied him. "Why?" she whispered. "Why save me?" Ethan hesitated. He didn't know how to answer. He thought of his daughter, the way she used to hold his hand, the sound of her laughter before the accident. He sighed. "Because no one helped me when I needed it most, maybe. It's time I do better." For a long time she was silent. Then she whispered, "Lyra, my name." "Is Lyra?" "Lyra," Ethan repeated. "I'm Ethan." She nodded weakly. Her eyes softened, but she looked scared again when a low rumble echoed outside. Ethan moved to the window and peeked through the curtain. A red light glowed faintly in the distance, scanning the trees. "They're still searching," Lyra said, sitting up a little. "They won't stop." "Who are they?" Ethan asked. "Humans." She shook her head. "No, not human. Not my kind either. Hunters, machines made by both." Ethan frowned. "Machines made by both? What does that mean?" Lyra closed her eyes. "I ran away from them. From the ship. They wanted me to help destroy this world." Ethan stared at her, shocked. "Destroy the world?" She nodded. "A weapon, I said no. They called it treason." The firelight flickered across her silver skin, making her look both fragile and powerful at once. Ethan didn't understand everything, but he could feel her fear. It was real. "We'll figure something out," he said firmly. "For now, you rest. I'll keep watch." He sat by the window, shotgun resting across his lap, eyes on the darkness. Hours passed. The wind howled through the trees, carrying strange metallic sounds from far away. At some point, Lyra whispered softly behind him, "Ethan?" "Yeah?" "Why do you live here?" "Alone?" He hesitated. "Because I lost the people I loved." Lyra looked at him sadly. Then, "You're like me." Her voice carried something heavy and a sorrow deeper than words. Ethan turned to look at her, but she had already fallen asleep, her glow fading into a soft silver shimmer. The night stretched long and cold. Ethan sat awake, staring out at the trees. Somewhere far off, he saw a flicker of red light moving between the branches. He tightened his grip on the shotgun. "You're not taking her," he whispered to the dark. The forest was silent again, but he knew the hunt wasn't over. And deep in his heart, he felt a strange new thing stirring, a reason to fight again. Morning came slowly, covered in a blanket of fog. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No birds sang, no wind moved the trees. Ethan stepped outside the cabin, his shotgun hanging at his side. The air smelled heavy like metal and smoke. He scanned the woods, listening, but there was only silence. Behind him, inside the cabin, Lyra sat by the window. Her silver skin glowed softly in the dim light, her eyes calm but sad. She had told him little, only that she escaped from a ship orbiting Earth and that the hunters were machines built to find her. Ethan didn't understand how something like her even existed, but he had already seen too much to doubt her words. He poured water into an old metal cup and handed it to her. "You need to drink," he said gently. She took it with trembling hands. "Your kindness is strange to me." Ethan gave a small smile. "Guess that makes us even. You're strange to me, too." She tilted her head, trying to understand his tone. For a moment, a faint smile touched her lips, the first one since he found her. But it vanished when a sudden clicking sound echoed outside. Ethan froze. He knew that sound. It wasn't an animal. It was mechanical, sharp and rhythmic like metal claws walking on stone. He peeked through the curtain. Between the trees, dark shapes moved. Tall, human-like figures, their bodies made of smooth black armor. Red sensors glowed where their eyes should be. "Lyra," Ethan whispered. "They're here." She stood up quickly, fear flashing across her glowing face. "You must hide me, please." Ethan moved fast. He pulled up an old rug and opened a trapdoor hidden beneath it. The small space below had once been a storage pit. Now it would have to be her hiding place. "Get in," he said. Lyra hesitated. "They will kill you if they find me." He looked at her firmly. "Then I'll lie." She opened her mouth to protest, but he gave her no time. He helped her down into the dark space and covered it with the rug, just as heavy footsteps reached the porch. A loud knock rattled the cabin door. Ethan took a deep breath, steadied his heartbeat, and opened it. 3 figures stood outside. They were tall, taller than any human, and covered in matte black armor with strange symbols glowing faintly on their chests. Their voices were metallic and cold. "Human male detected. Identity Ethan Cole," one said. "You have encountered unauthorized extraterrestrial life. Report now." Ethan kept his voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about." The lead hunter tilted its head. "Energy readings indicate anomaly within this area." It stepped forward, scanning the room with a device that hummed softly. The red beam swept across the walls, the floor, and stopped directly over the rug. Ethan's pulse quickened. "That thing broken?" he asked, forcing a nervous laugh. The machine said nothing. It simply stared at him for a long, tense moment. Then it lowered the scanner and turned away. "No anomaly detected. Continue search perimeter." The other 2 followed, their heavy steps fading into the fog. Ethan waited until they were gone before collapsing into a chair, his hands shaking. He lifted the rug and reached down. "They're gone," he whispered. Lyra crawled out, her eyes wide with fear. "They will come again," she said softly. "They never stop until their mission is complete." Ethan rubbed his face. "Then we'll make sure they fail." She looked at him, confused. "Why help me?" "You owe me nothing," he sighed. "Because you're not a monster. You're scared, hurt, and hunted. I know what that feels like." Lyra's glowing eyes softened. "On my world," she said quietly, "we do not feel. We obey, but you act from feeling." She touched her chest gently. "I think that is what makes humans strong." Ethan smiled faintly. "We're not always strong, but we try." For a while, silence filled the cabin again. Lyra sat near the window, watching the fog drift through the trees. Her glow reflected faintly in the glass like a small living star trapped on Earth. Then she spoke, her voice trembling. "If they capture me, they will use what I know, to destroy your world." Ethan turned sharply. "What do you mean?" She met his eyes. "They built a weapon. A sunmaker. It can burn whole worlds. I was part of it. Until I ran." Ethan felt cold. "They'll come for that weapon, won't they?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, and they'll erase anything in their way." He looked out the window, gripping his shotgun. The fog had thickened again, but through it a faint red light blinked in the distance. One of the hunters was still out there, watching. Ethan stood up. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Lyra stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. "You would fight them?" He nodded. "I've got nothing left to lose." Outside, a metallic roar echoed through the forest, shaking the cabin walls. Lyra whispered. "They've found the trail." Ethan looked at her and saw fear. Yes, but also something else in her eyes. Hope. He loaded his shotgun, checked the door, and said quietly, "Then we fight together." The next morning the fog was gone, and sunlight filtered weakly through the trees. Smoke from the small fire inside the cabin curled toward the ceiling, filling the air with the scent of burnt wood and damp earth. Ethan sat by the table, repairing the old rifle that had belonged to his father. Across from him, Lyra sat quietly, her silver hands folded in her lap. The soft glow of her skin had grown dimmer since the night before, but her eyes, bright, blue, and full of curiosity, watched every small thing he did. Ethan could feel her gaze but said nothing. He focused on the gun, tightening the screws, wiping the barrel clean. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "Why do you hold that weapon all the time?" she asked softly. Ethan looked up. "Because it's the only thing that's ever kept me alive." She tilted her head, thinking. "Your world, it is full of fear." He gave a half smile. "Yeah, but it's also full of people worth protecting." Lyra lowered her eyes. "My world has no fear, no love, no protection, only orders." Her words carried a strange sadness that made Ethan's chest tighten. He had seen loss, grief, pain, but this was different. This was emptiness. He poured 2 cups of instant coffee and pushed one toward her. "Here, it's not good, but it's warm." She looked at the cup, puzzled. "What is it?" "Coffee," he said. "A human drink. Helps us feel awake." Lyra lifted it carefully and sniffed. Her nose wrinkled. "It smells bitter," Ethan chuckled. "Yeah, it is. But after a while you start to like it." She took a small sip. Her face twisted in confusion and she set the cup down quickly. "Your kind drinks this willingly?" Ethan laughed for the first time in days. The sound surprised them both. Lyra looked at him with wide eyes, then smiled faintly. "Your sound. It feels warm," she said quietly. Ethan paused, looking at her. There was something in her voice, not just curiosity, but softness. A kind of innocent wonder he hadn't heard in years. They spent most of the day in silence. Ethan checked the traps outside for food. Lyra watched the sky, whispering words in her own language, words that sounded like music. When he returned with a rabbit, she stood back, eyes wide as he skinned and cooked it. "You eat other creatures?" she asked, almost horrified. "It's how we survive," he said simply. "The forest gives, we take." She touched the wooden wall gently. "On my planet, we grow everything. We do not kill." He looked at her glowing fingers, sliding across the old wood like light moving through water. "Maybe that's why your world fell apart," he said softly. "Maybe you forgot how to fight to live." She turned to him, her voice trembling. "Or maybe we forgot how to live without fighting." For a moment, silence filled the cabin again. Only the fire crackled between them. Later that evening, Ethan found Lyra standing outside, barefoot, staring up at the sky. Her hair shimmered faintly under the moonlight. The forest was quiet, too quiet. He joined her, his hands in his jacket pockets. "You should rest," she shook her head. "I can feel them." Far above, searching still, Ethan looked up. Through the clouds, faint red lights blinked, moving slowly across the night sky. "Satellites," he said. "Hunters," she corrected softly. "Their minds are inside the machines. They can smell energy. They can smell me." Ethan frowned. "Then we'll move tomorrow." "Deeper in." Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Why risk your life for me, Ethan Cole?" He didn't answer right away. His voice was low when he finally spoke. "Because maybe saving you gives me a reason to keep going." Lyra's eyes softened. She stepped closer, her glow touching the edge of his jacket. "On my world, we are not allowed to feel. But when I look at you, I feel something different. It frightens me." Ethan met her gaze. "That's called being human." She smiled, just a little, and whispered, "Then maybe I am learning." The two stood there in silence for a long time, the moonlight painting their faces in pale silver. But the peace didn't last. A low rumble rolled through the earth. Ethan's eyes snapped to the horizon. In the distance, beyond the trees, a red flash lit up the night. Lyra's smile faded instantly. "They've found me." Ethan grabbed his rifle. "How close?" She closed her eyes for a moment, listening to something only she could sense. Too close, the forest trembled. Somewhere far away, a mechanical roar echoed through the night. Ethan looked at her. "Then we run," Lyra nodded. "No, we fight." Ethan hesitated, then gave a sharp grin. Guess you really are learning. As the red light grew brighter between the trees, Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. The bond between them, once fragile, now burned stronger than fear itself. The night burned red. The first explosion tore through the forest like thunder, shaking the ground beneath Ethan's boots. The cabin windows shattered as a blast of wind and heat slammed into the walls. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her down just as another explosion hit the clearing. Fire swallowed the trees outside, turning the night into a storm of smoke and light. "They found us," Ethan shouted over the roar. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, her fear flashing through their blue light. "They've locked onto my signal. I can't stop it." "Then we move." Ethan threw open the back door and pushed her out into the rain-soaked woods. The air smelled like burning metal and ozone. He could see the red lights descending, hunters dropping from the sky like shadows with wings. He grabbed the shotgun and fired into the dark. The sound echoed through the trees. Sparks flew where the pellets hit one of the black-armored soldiers, but the thing didn't fall. It turned its head, red eyes locking onto him. "Go," Ethan yelled. "Run, Lyra!" Lyra hesitated. "No, they want me, not you. And they'll get both if you don't move." She looked torn, but when another beam of red light sliced through the forest, she finally ran. Her silver figure vanished between the trees, glowing faintly in the rain. Ethan fired again, hitting one of the drones that buzzed overhead. It exploded in a burst of blue fire, lighting up the path for just a second, but it wasn't enough. There were too many of them. A metal shape dropped in front of him, landing with a heavy crash. The hunter's armor gleamed wet in the rain, and its voice came out like static and steel. "Human life form identified. Surrender target Lyra." Ethan raised his gun. "You want her? You'll have to kill me first." The machine's head tilted, analyzing him. Resistance. Unnecessary. It moved faster than he could react. A mechanical arm struck him in the chest, sending him flying backward into a tree. Pain exploded through his ribs. He gasped for air and tried to crawl, but a cold metal hand wrapped around his leg. From somewhere deeper in the forest, Lyra screamed, a sound sharp and desperate. Ethan's vision blurred. "Lyra!" he shouted, struggling to break free. But the hunter's grip tightened. A blinding red light filled his eyes, and then everything went black. He woke to silence. His head throbbed. His wrists were bound with cold metal cuffs. The ground beneath him was steel, not dirt. The air smelled like electricity and oil. Ethan groaned and tried to sit up. He was in a cell, no windows, only gray walls that shimmered faintly with energy. The floor hummed under his hands, a door slid open with a hiss. Light spilled in, and two armored hunters stepped inside, dragging someone between them. Lyra. Her glow was faint now, her silver skin streaked with dark marks where her energy had been drained. They dropped her to the floor like a broken doll. Ethan's anger burned through the pain. "Let her go," he shouted, pulling against his cuffs. The hunters ignored him. One of them spoke in its cold, flat voice. "Subject Lyra, containment successful. Preparing for transfer to core ship." Lyra lifted her head weakly. Her voice trembled. "You shouldn't have come for me." Ethan moved closer, his chain scraping the floor. "You think I'd just leave you?" Tears, small glowing drops, formed at the corners of her eyes. "They'll kill you for this. Then I'll make sure they regret it." The hunters turned toward him, their red eyes glowing brighter. Human interference detected. "Terminate after transfer." Lyra's head snapped up. Panic filled her voice. "No, he's innocent!" But the machines didn't listen. They grabbed her arms and began to drag her away. Ethan's heart pounded. "No, Lyra!" He yanked at the cuffs with all his strength, the metal cutting into his skin. Something inside him snapped. Not the cuffs, but something deeper, fiercer. A pulse of energy surged through the room. The lights flickered. The hunters paused, their sensors flashing with static. Lyra looked back in shock. What did you do?" Ethan stared down. The cuffs glowed red-hot, then shattered. He didn't understand it either. Maybe something from her touch, maybe something from whatever power she carried. But he didn't care. He lunged forward, tackling the nearest hunter. It swung its metal arm, but Ethan ducked and grabbed the weapon from its belt. A plasma knife. The blade hissed to life, cutting through metal like paper. Sparks flew as the hunter fell. The second one turned, but Lyra raised her trembling hand and released a burst of blue light that threw it against the wall. For a moment, Everything was still. Smoke rose from the floor. The air crackled with energy. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "Can you walk?" She nodded weakly. "Barely." "Then we're leaving." They stepped out into the corridor. Long metal walls stretched in both directions, glowing with red lines of light. Alarms began to scream overhead. Lyra's voice was faint. "Ethan, they will send more." He tightened his grip on her hand. "Then we'll send them back in pieces." As they ran down the endless hall, the bass shook again, louder this time. In the distance, the sound of engines roared. Lyra looked up, her glow flickering. "They're waking the core." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" Her voice was full of dread. "It means the whole world is about to burn." The alarms screamed like dying sirens. Red lights flashed across the steel walls, throwing sharp shadows that danced as Ethan and Lyra ran through the endless metal corridors. The floor vibrated beneath their feet. The sound of machines waking, engines roaring to life deep below. The air grew hotter, heavier, filled with the smell of ozone and smoke. Ethan's heart pounded so loud he could hear nothing else. "Which way out?" he shouted, gripping Lyra's hand tightly. She closed her eyes for a second, listening, not with her ears, but with something deeper. "The east wing. There's a launch tunnel. If we reach it, we can escape before the core activates. Then lead the way." Lyra's steps were weak, but her determination burned brighter than the blue glow in her veins. They turned down a hall lined with silver tubes, each one filled with something floating. People. Ethan froze. Inside the glass chambers were humans, hundreds of them. "Sleeping or maybe dead, what is this?" he whispered, horrified. Lyra's voice shook. "Experiments. They study your kind. They call it the merging. They want to build soldiers that feel no pain." Ethan clenched his fists. "Monsters. They are not alive," Lyra said softly. "Just copies of what life once was." He forced himself to look away. The hallway stretched on forever, the hum of machines growing louder with every step. Then suddenly a clang. A door slammed shut behind them. "They found us," Lyra said. A metallic voice echoed through the corridor. "Subject Lyra. Human Ethan Cole. Escape is impossible." From both ends of the hall, hunters stepped out of the shadows. Tall, black-armored figures with glowing red visors. There were at least 10 of them. Ethan raised the plasma knife he'd stolen. "Guess we'll make it possible." Lyra stepped in front of him. "No, let me." Her eyes flared bright blue. For a moment, silence. Then the air rippled, bending around her like water. The walls shook, lights shattered, and a wave of blue energy burst outward, slamming into the hunters. Their armor cracked. Circuits sparked. Some fell, others stumbled, but the effort cost her. Lyra collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her glow dimmed again. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. "You're killing yourself doing this." She looked up weakly. "I was never meant to live this long." Her words stabbed into him like a blade. He shook his head fiercely. "No, you're not dying here. Not like this." He lifted her into his arms and ran. The alarms blared louder now, a deep rhythmic pulse that made the metal vibrate. Doors opened automatically along the hall as if the ship itself wanted to trap them. Ethan ducked through one, then another, searching for any path that led upward. Finally, they burst into a massive chamber filled with roaring engines and glowing energy coils. The air shimmered with heat. In the center stood a tall crystal core pulsing with red light, alive, angry. Lyra's eyes widened. "The weapon. They're powering it. What happens if it fires?" Ethan asked. "The sky burns. Your oceans boil. The world ends." Ethan stared at the core, feeling his stomach drop. "Then we stop it." Lyra's voice trembled. "It's too strong. Maybe. But we don't need to win. We just need to break it." He set her down gently and ran toward the nearest control panel. Bullets of red plasma shot past his head. The hunters had followed. He ducked behind a console, fired back with a stolen rifle, and yelled, "Lyra! Can you shut it down?" She tried to stand. Blue light flickered from her hands, wrapping around the core, but sparks exploded from the base. "It's protected by an energy lock," she cried. "I need more power." Ethan glanced at the glowing cables feeding into the machine. He gritted his teeth. "Then take mine." Before she could stop him, he grabbed the nearest cable and jammed it against his arm. Pain exploded through his body. Electricity ripped through him, burning like fire. But Lyra's eyes widened as her glow suddenly flared brighter. She reached toward him, her hands trembling, and pulled the energy into herself. The room filled with blue light. Blinding. Pure. Alive. The hunters screamed as their systems overloaded. The walls cracked, the metal twisted, and the core began to pulse faster, out of control. Ethan dropped to his knees, smoke rising from his arm. "Lyra now?" he shouted. She floated off the ground, her whole body shining like a small star. "Goodbye, Ethan. No," he yelled, reaching for her. "Don't you dare." She smiled faintly. "You showed me mercy. Now I'll return it." She raised her hands, and the core exploded in a burst of white and blue light. The sound was deafening. The shockwave threw Ethan backward, slamming him into a wall. Everything went silent. When the light faded, the hunters were gone. They melted into the floor. The core was cracked, dark, silent. Smoke filled the air. Ethan stumbled forward, coughing. "Lyra!" He found her lying on the floor near the shattered crystal. Her glow was fading fast. He fell beside her, lifting her into his arms. "Stay with me," he said, his voice shaking. Her eyes opened just enough for him to see the soft blue still flickering there. "You saved your world," she whispered. "Now it's your turn to live again." Her hand brushed his cheek, light as a feather, then went still. Ethan held her close as the last of her light faded into the smoke. Above them, the alarm stopped. The base was dying, but outside the first light of dawn touched the horizon. Ethan looked up, tears mixing with the soot on his face. "I'll keep your promise," he whispered. "You didn't die for nothing." The sky was no longer red. For the first time in days, sunlight touched the burned mountain where the alien base once stood. Smoke rose in thin silver lines from the shattered ground. The forest around it was ruined. Blackened trees, melted stones, and ash swirling in the quiet air. Yet somehow it was peaceful. Too peaceful. Ethan Cole crawled out from the rubble, coughing hard. His clothes were torn, his hands burned, but he was alive. He looked around. The entire base had collapsed into a crater. The air hummed faintly, like the echo of something that had once been powerful but was now gone forever. He pushed himself up, limping. "Lyra!" his voice cracked. "Lyra!" There was no answer, only wind. He stumbled through the ruins, moving pieces of metal and stone aside with bleeding hands. His heart pounded with every step. He couldn't accept that she was gone, not after everything. Then he saw it, a faint blue glow beneath a pile of broken machinery. Ethan ran to it, pulling the debris away piece by piece. Beneath it lay Lyra, her body half covered in dust, her once bright light now dim and flickering. She was breathing, barely. "Hey, hey," he whispered, falling to his knees beside her. "Don't you do this." "Not now." Her eyelids fluttered. Her voice was soft, weak, but still clear. "You made it?" "Yeah," Ethan said, choking back tears. "We both did." Lyra tried to smile, but pain shadowed her face. "No, Ethan, my body is failing. The core's explosion drained everything."
"I have minutes."
"Maybe less," he shook his head fiercely. "No, we'll find help. Someone will fix you. Someone has to." She touched his cheek, her fingers trembling. "Your people are safe now. That's enough." He grabbed her hand and pressed it against his chest. "You think I care about the world right now? You're the reason I fought at all." A tear slid down her silver skin, glowing like a falling star. "You taught me what mercy means," she whispered. "What love means," Ethan's throat tightened. "And you showed me how to live again." Lyra's eyes glowed faintly as she looked up at the sky. "Before I die, I can do one last thing. I can stop what's left of the weapon above your planet." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "There's still one ship in orbit. The command signal is active. I can send my energy through the remains of the network and shut it down." Ethan shook his head. "That'll kill you," she smiled gently. "I was never meant to live here anyway." He gripped her shoulders. "Lyra, no, please." Her hand rested over his heart again. "Ethan, every world needs mercy. Even yours. Promise me you'll keep it alive." Tears filled his eyes as he nodded. "I promise." Lyra closed her eyes, her glow spreading slowly from her chest to her fingertips. The light grew brighter, bluer, filling the crater with warmth. Ethan had to step back as the air around her began to shimmer. The ground trembled lightly. Her voice echoed in the wind, though her lips didn't move. "Goodbye, Ethan Cole." Then her body dissolved, turning into pure light that shot upward, spiraling into the sky. The beam pierced the clouds, reaching far beyond what the eye could see. Ethan fell to his knees, watching as the light spread across the heavens like a river of stars. Above, a great flash rippled across the sky, and the faint red glows in the hunters' ships blinked out one by one, fading forever. Silence returned. Only the wind remained, soft and gentle. Hours passed before Ethan finally stood again. His body hurt everywhere, but his heart hurt the most. The crater was cold now, empty, but he could still feel her presence in the air like a whisper that would never fade. He climbed out slowly, limping toward the edge of the forest. The sun was rising over the mountains, turning the sky gold. He could almost hear her voice in the wind. "You showed me mercy." Ethan reached the remains of his old truck. It barely stood, but somehow the engine coughed to life when he turned the key. He smiled faintly and looked at the horizon. The world was quiet. No ships, no lights, no hunters. Just Earth, alive and free. As he drove down the lonely road, he glanced at the sky one last time. High above, far beyond the clouds, a single blue star glowed faintly where none had been before. Ethan whispered, "You weren't from this world, Lyra, but you were the most human I ever met." His voice cracked, but a small smile crossed his face. He drove until the forest thinned and the wind carried the smell of rain. Life was beginning again, birds returning, sunlight warming the earth. When he reached the old bridge where he once used to sit with his daughter, he stopped the truck. He stood by the rail, the water below reflecting the golden dawn. He pulled the small, cracked locket from his pocket, the one that held a photo of his daughter, and beside it, a shard of blue crystal he'd found where Lyra vanished. He held them both in his hand. "For you," he whispered. "For both of you." He tossed them into the river. The crystal glowed faintly as it sank, sending ripples across the water that caught the morning sun. Ethan stood there a long time, eyes on the light fading beneath the surface. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone, and far above, among the stars, a soft blue glow shimmered, watching, guarding, and remembering.